Good morning, Ted. Thank you for meeting me on such short notice.
It's my pleasure. How can I help you?
I know that you're involved in the educational technology meetings, and your faculty dean speaks highly of you. As you know, we're currently preparing our strategic plan for the next 5 years. We're looking to promote blended learning, but also to reduce licensing and course material costs for both the students and the college. Textbook prices are getting out of hand, as are media costs. I was wondering if you have some ideas on this topic.
From what I can tell, we could really benefit from using open educational resources.
Are you referring to the UNESCO project?
Yes, OERs allow teachers to use content that has already been developed, then transform it and share the result. Since it's open, there aren't any licensing fees and its content is flexible.
Interesting. Could you send me more information on OERs?
My thesis supervisor at Torvalds University, Robert Wozniak, gave a great talk on this topic last year. It's an introduction and it's not that long. I think they filmed the talk and put it online. Would you like me to try to find it and send the link along to you?
Yes, please. You really piqued my interest.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Robert Wozniak, and I'm co-chair of Education Technology at Torvalds University. This module will introduce you to Open Educational Resources, or OERs, which are educational resources made available to everyone, free of charge, with the freedom to modify and adapt them for your needs. After completing this module, you'll be able to locate open educational resources and understand how you may use them in your teaching practice. So, again, what are open educational resources? Open educational resources began to gain momentum starting in 2002 at a conference organized by UNESCO on open courseware. UNESCO defines OERs as teaching, learning, and research materials in any medium, digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no-cost access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. Open licensing is built within the existing framework of intellectual property rights as defined by relevant international conventions and respects the authorship of the work. To be considered an OER, a resource must 1. Be covered by an open license, 2. Be provided free of charge, and 3. Have either limited or no restrictions on their use, adaptation, and redistribution. You'll notice that this definition closely resembles the tenets of Creative Commons licenses, CC BY, CC BY SA, CC BY NC, CC BY NC SA, including the public domain marks. In fact, many media assets covered by Creative Commons are used in the creation of OERs. On June 22, 2012, during the World Open Educational Resources Congress in Paris, 10 recommendations were made to member states as part of the 2012 Paris OER Declaration. Of the 10 recommendations, 5 are of particular interest to teachers. The first one is to foster awareness and use of OERs. To ensure accessibility and quality of education, member states should promote the use of OER. In this way, educational material costs shall remain low for students, and teachers will have greater access to quality material to build upon. The second recommendation is to promote the understanding and use of open licensing frameworks. The goal is to make more and more resources accessible to everyone while respecting the rights of authors. The third recommendation was to encourage the development and adaptation of OERs in a variety of languages and for different cultural contexts. The goal of the OER initiative is not to produce standard resources for everyone, but to provide a baseline to help teachers adapt those resources to their specific context. The fourth recommendation is to facilitate finding, retrieving, and sharing of OERs. Making OERs easily accessible and shareable is the key to expanding their use. OER accessibility should not be restricted to education specialists, but should be made available to everyone. The fifth recommendation is to encourage open licensing of educational materials produced with public funds. This is only fair. If the resources were developed using public money, the results should also be made accessible to the public. From UNESCO's point of view, it is important for teachers to use, promote, and produce OERs for the benefit of everyone. So what are the advantages of OERs if we compare them to commercial resources? This is not simply a quality issue, as there are both excellent OERs and commercial resources. The absence of license fees to use a resource would be one obvious reason to use OERs as compared to commercial resources, since OERs can be used free of charge. But it's not the only or most important reason. Using open educational resources has the advantage of allowing more freedom to use or repurpose the content than is generally permitted within commercial contracts. Commercial resources are frequently password protected or have other digital locks to restrain modification of the content and simultaneously make them exempt from the provisions of fair dealing. The absence of a digital lock means that the user 1. Can modify or change the content, such as copy, paste, annotate, or highlight. They can 2. Change the format, as in text-to-speech or computer-to-tablet. 3. They have no restrictions on printing. 4. There is no geographical restriction. 5. There are no restrictions to use the license or resell the material. Contrary to a commercial license, the user is not restricted to use the resource according to the provisions set forth within the license. Without a license, the user is free to use the resource in whichever way they would like. There are no limits on its use. Additionally, the use of the resource is not limited to a certain time frame, as there are no expiry dates. Commercial licenses seem to be getting more lengthy and complicated over time, contrary to open content. There are less privacy concerns with open resources, and in some cases commercial licenses are becoming overreaching with regards to the data they collect and the permissions they require on the computer or device where they are installed. So how can you use OERs? With their open license, OERs provide great opportunities for teachers to use existing material and improve their courses without having to reinvent the wheel. That said, with OERs, innovation is encouraged, so if there's a better wheel to be made, go ahead and make one. There are a few generally accepted approaches to changing OERs available to users. The first method is mixing OERs. This means taking a part of the OER you like and mixing it with another OER or your course content to enhance the final result. Instead of developing new content from scratch for your course, it might be more efficient to mix a well-conceived resource into your course. If someone else developed a module that would be a perfect fit for your course, you can add it and concentrate your efforts on other subjects. The second method is adaptation. This means changing the context of an OER to match it to the context of your course. Adapting material to your course is often less time-consuming than building it yourself, which may also be impractical. As an example, perhaps you find a module on how meteorologists forecast weather from the United States that mentions Vermont. If this is an open educational resource, you can change the units of measure from Fahrenheit to Celsius and mention Quebec instead of Vermont. The third method is extraction. This means taking parts of the OER that you need and discarding the rest. Since OERs can be transformed, you aren't required to keep everything. You can pick and choose the parts you want and use only those parts. To continue the weather example, if you are creating a module on extreme weather, you can extract the portions that relate to hurricanes and typhoons and then discard anything that you don't need. The fourth method is localization. This means changing an OER to suit the specific needs of the place where you are teaching. If an OER was created in a different country for a different level of education system, you can transform it to fit the needs of your course without a problem. Perhaps there are important cultural differences in the place where you live and you want to make changes. Or maybe the measurements in the course are all in imperial and you want metric. No problem. Change the content to respect the local reality or approach. The fifth method is translation. Anyone can translate OERs to the language of their choosing. You are not limited to using OERs from your language of instruction and can draw on assets from any other language that you understand. If you're comfortable enough, you can go ahead and translate the resource into your language of instruction. If you're giving a course in English on Spain, there might be great resources in Spanish you can use and make available to your students. If you happen to speak Spanish, translate them. The sixth method is reusing or repurposing. It means that you are not limited in the number of times and ways you can use the OERs in your course, or for any other course you want. This is often in contrast with commercial licenses, which require you to pay royalties for each and every use of the work. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of OERs are their versatility. Teachers have access to a great variety of material that they can transform and use according to their needs. Building an open course by using open educational resources can be a good and cost-effective solution, since buying a turnkey course or a course manual can be expensive. You can also save a great amount of time, since building a course from scratch can take a huge amount of time. Since there is a great variety of easily accessible OERs, teachers have all they need to get started and build high-quality courses. The first tenet for building an open course with OER is to look around, to see what resources are available. It's very important not to concentrate too much on a set curriculum, but to have an open mind, adapting the resources you find. Always keep in mind that you can modify the OER you find to fit your needs, so whatever you find doesn't need to be a perfect fit. The OER you find doesn't have to contain everything. You can assemble a course from multiple OERs. Another option would be to debone an existing course, which is to take out the copyrighted material and replace it with open content. A second tenet of working with OERs is to build your course around the best OER you find. It is usually far easier to adapt your course to the material than the other way around. As a rule, you should try not to create from scratch, as it takes time and is not productive. Redoing a course that someone has already made available is not the best use of your already limited time. Assembling and adapting different OER or other resources is the key. A fourth tenet of OERs is to accept and embrace the work of others. There is no shame in not creating everything by yourself. Remind yourself that there is no such thing as original thought. Even so-called original works are often adaptations of an idea that someone has already fleshed out, albeit with a new perspective. The fifth principle of working with OERs is just to go for it. If you refrain from using OERs because you're not sure where it will lead you, you're missing out on an amazing opportunity. Over-planning, over-analyzing, or intellectual self-sabotage are common culprits that keep teachers from getting involved with OERs. These extraordinary resources are low-lying fruit that are ripe for the picking. With the emergence of open licenses like Creative Commons and sharing platforms like Wikimedia Commons, it is increasingly easy to find open content. With machine-readable licenses and websites specifically created to help people browse through open content, getting the OER you need is just a couple of clicks away. Google has an option to look specifically for open content. There is also the option to look for specific types of media, like images, for example in Pixabay, video, for example in YouTube, or music, for example in SoundCloud, as well as web pages. Creative Commons created an aggregator of search engines that calibrates searches for open content and includes Google results. It can be found at search.creativecommons.org. Make sure to exercise a bit of caution when performing these searches, as it is possible that some of the search results include copyrighted material. This is because certain search engines embed protected works within the search results as a way of generating revenue. In other cases, copyrighted works may have been posted to the internet without the legitimate owner's consent. Think of feature films or TV shows that appear on YouTube. Verify as best you can whether the content is open or not. A good way is to verify the source, the website, of the OER. Is it reliable or not? Also, look for a reference to a Creative Commons license or a public domain mark. If no such mark is present, be careful. You can also look for a copyright symbol or a mention that copyright might still apply. If you're planning on making your material publicly available, you may want to seek the advice of an expert, like a copyright specialist or a librarian. Even though search engines can be useful to look for open resources, the better approach to finding OERs is by searching on dedicated platforms. One good reference is the Open Courseware Consortium developed by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, more commonly known as MIT. As the first source of OER from a major educational institution, it pioneered the development of institutional open resources by making entire courses available for free online. The consortium now features courses from other American universities like Stanford or Berkeley. The courses are fairly complete. Teachers can copy and adapt a course syllabus, assignments, and other resources for reuse in their own class as long as the author of the work is acknowledged and the repurposing is not for commercial use. Connections, an organization developed at Rice University, has received extensive funding to develop OERs, especially textbooks that anyone can use. The textbook initiative is known as OpenStax CNX. It is a non-profit organization that makes OERs available in the form of pages of content. If aggregated, those pages can also be transformed into books similar to those developed commercially by publishing houses. Sailor Academy, another non-profit organization, offers courses which you can take at your own pace, and even 2 full programs. All these courses are free to share without restriction under the Creative Commons license with a CC BY attribution. OER Commons offers OER objects from a wide range of educational levels. It serves as an aggregator of OERs. Developed from a worldwide OER initiative, it provides resources that are tagged with labels that can help the user see what he can or cannot do with a resource. In Canada, OpenEd from BC Campus is probably the biggest OER initiative. It developed the Open Textbook Project to provide textbooks for the post-secondary courses with the greatest enrollment in British Columbia. Much like online vendors, the Open Textbook Project site even offers textbook reviews from teachers or educational advisors as a tool to help teachers evaluate the quality of the work. In Quebec, colleges and universities are starting to develop more and more content. TLR, or Teaching and Learning Resources initiatives, which are also known in French as Ressources d'enseignement et d'apprentissage, or REA, are starting to emerge as more and more educational institutions start to understand the advantages of using open content. You're now able to understand the benefit of open educational resources and to easily identify a handful of potential sources of OERs. For more details on OERs, you can consult your librarian or the intellectual property specialist of your college. You can also consult the Useful Links page for more information on a specific topic. Thanks for watching this module.
Did you have a chance to look at the presentation?
It's really interesting. Making greater use of OER seems perfectly aligned with the values of the college and our strategic plan since we want studies to be more accessible and affordable. I'm going to put educational resources on the agenda for the next committee meeting. Thank you for your lead.
I'm happy to be of help. The more we get the word out and use or create OERs, the more we stand to gain.
As a public service institution, it is in our mandate to do so. Thanks again.